song tells a story. And behind every great song, there's a story to be told.
Well, since my baby left me, well, I found a new place to dwell. Well, it's down at the end of Lonely Street at Heartbreak Hotel. I'll make you so lonely, baby. Well, I'm so lonely. I'll be so lonely I could die. Although it's always crowded, you still can find some room for broken-hearted lovers to cry there in the gloom and be so, baby, so lonely, baby. They're so lonely. Well, they're so lonely they could die. Now the bellhop's tears keep flowing, the desk clerk's dressed in black. Well, they've been so long on the street, they'll never look back. And they're so lonely, baby. Well, they're so lonely. Well, they're so lonely, they're afraid to die.
Here's one that I hope you like, and this one really tells a story, friends. It's not only sad, it's plumb pitiful.
Delicate and tender Berceuse in D flat.
In fall of 1955, around October, I read the paper, breakfast time, and I saw this little item in the paper. It was in the Miami Herald, that's all I can remember, and it wasn't large, it wasn't long, maybe a couple of 3 inches on the column. A man had committed suicide. All he had left in the way of a suicide note was, "I walk a lonely street." And I thought, now that would be a real blues if I could write what he felt. For whatever reason he killed himself, he had to be very lonely, let's face it. I took that idea to Mae Axton. She was also a songwriter, and she would be the advance agent for a lot of the shows from the Grand Ole Opry that came into Jacksonville, including Elvis Presley, and at that time he wasn't known anywhere out of the South and Southwest.
Tommy came in, and pretty soon he just started pacing in the living room in front of me. And I said, "What is it, Tommy?" And he said, "Well, there's a story that really disturbs me, it bothers me." And he said, "I can't get it out of my mind."
So Mae says, "Well, let's talk about it a little bit." And the first thing you know, She sat down at the piano and pulled out some notepaper and put it there, and we started writing. And I had Lonely Street.
I said, so let's put a Heartbreak Hotel at the end of his Lonely Street. Tommy's eyes got open. He said, let's do. I said, let's write it.
And I had the tune, you know, just blues progression, donkey, donkey, donkey. And it was beautiful, the way it went down. We finished that song, and May said that would be a great song for Elvis. It would sell 1 million.
The moment Heartbreak Hotel came into being, so to speak, Elvis was just tearing people up everywhere he went. But remember that this was only regional. The world still hadn't met Elvis Presley.
Train I ride, 16 coaches long. Train I ride, 16 coaches long.
You are sort of a bebop artist more than anything else, aren't you? Is that what you'd call you?
Well, a lot of the disc jockeys call me bopping, hillbilly, and bebop. I don't know what.
Sort of a combination of things. You know, I happen to know that you have toured all down in the eastern part of the country, too, down through Florida and around, and that the people went for you there about as well as out in West Texas. Isn't that right?
Well, I wasn't very well known down here. I'm just with a small company, and my records don't have the distribution that they should have.
But I think you are one of the fastest rising young stars perhaps in the field.
Well, thank you very much, May, and I'd like to personally thank you for really promoting my records down here, because you really have done a wonderful job.
And I called Elvis, and I said, honey, I have your first million seller. Meet me in Nashville tomorrow. They came up to the room, and I turned on the tape recorder, and I could see Elvis begin kind of moving as the song progressed. And then when it finished, Elvis looked over and said, hot dog, May, play it again. And I played that thing, but he listened to that about 10 times. And he was so excited, and he was just began kind of humming with it, you know, already. And that's when I told him, I said, Elvis, RCA are buying your contract from Sun Records. And if this is your first release as a single on RCA, then I'll give you 1/3 of it. I said, because this is a million seller. And he kind of grinned, because, you know, it was a dream, but not a likely possibility that he would have a million seller very soon. And he never claimed to have written a word or note of it.
Well, when I was driving a truck, every time a big shiny car drove by, it started me sort of daydreaming. I always felt that someday, somehow, something would happen to change everything for me, and I'd daydream about how it would be.
Well, since my baby left, well, I found a new place to dwell. Well, it's down at the end of Lonely Street, that Heartbreak Hotel where I'll be just so lonely, baby. Well, I'm so lonely, I'll be so lonely.
Elvis Presley.
Well, what about your favorite recording, Elvis, since you've been in the business, your favorite recording?
Well, I guess I would say Heartbreak Hotel I would like, because I like the song especially.
Well, just take a walk down Lonely Street to Heartbreak Hotel. You'll be so lonely, baby. Well, you'll be lonely. You'll be so lonely you could die. Well,
Hi, this is Elvis Presley. I guess the first thing people want to know is why I can't stand still when I'm singing. Some people tap their feet, some people snap their fingers, and some people just sway back and forth. I just sort of do them all together, I guess. Singing rhythm and blues really knocks it out. I watch my audience and listen to them, and I know that we're all getting something out of our system, and none of us knows what it is.
The person I met as an entertainer was a very confident person that, and he was at that stage of his career where he was having a lot of fun. It's like a child that's going into the toy department and somebody says, you can have all the toys that you want, you know. He had a couple of hit records, and he was at that point also where the fans weren't grabbing at him, and he would come down to the gate every afternoon where we would meet him, and he would stay at the gate for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and talk to the people, sign autographs, treat them as friends, and a lot of them were friends, you know. He was really enjoying life. It was sort of like a bewilderment, though. He never could believe at that point that this was happening to him.
Hello? One moment, please.
Hi. I have Elvis Presley on the phone. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Elvis. Just one moment.
Hello, Elvis.
Hello?
You know, less than 2 years ago, you were earning $14 a week as a movie usher and then $35 a week for driving a truck in Memphis. Today, you're the most controversial name in show business. Has this sudden notoriety affected your sleep, your appetite, or the size of your head?
Not the size of my head. It's affected my sleep.
How much sleep do you get?
Oh, I average about 4 or 5 hours a night, I guess.
Is that enough?
No, it's really not, but I'm used to it, and I can't sleep any longer.
What do you keep in mind mostly? I mean, some of the songs you're going to do, or some of your plans, or what? What goes through your mind?
Well, everything has happened to me so fast in the last year and a half till I'm all mixed up, you know. I mean, I can't keep up with everything that's happening. And
the whole significance of Heartbreak Hotel consists in the fact that it suddenly, abruptly launched him out across America and across the world. There had never been anything like it before, and really nothing like it either in Elvis's entire career. It was a psychodrama in which he enacted despair and self-abasing humiliation, and above all, a terrible sense of pain and loneliness, which turned out to be really the great themes of his subsequent life. It was one of those eerie phenomena in which a very young man does something just unwittingly that becomes then a prophecy of what, as a mature man at the end of his career, is going to become his final phase.
And to see him off stage, you'd never know that he had ever been on stage from his actions, because he's very shy, very polite and unassuming, and not loud or anything like that. Fine young man. It's so sad what happened to him.
I'll be strong as a mountain, or weak as a willow tree.
His mother died, and he was extremely attached to his mother. She was his rock. And when she died, it seemed like everything was downhill from then on.
I suppose since I was an only child, that we might have been a little closer, and Mother was always right with me all my life. A friend, a companion, someone to talk to. I could wake her up any hour of the night, and if I was worried or troubled about something, she'd get up and try to help me.
I do. In fact, that was the hardest part of the entire military service, is being away from it. Being away from the fans and just being away from show business altogether. That was the hardest part of all. It wasn't the Army, it wasn't the other men. It was that. It stayed on my mind. I kept thinking about the past all the time, contemplating the future, and
Elvis,
that was the hardest part.
We know your family status has changed since you went into service. Are you going to keep Graceland? Do you have plans of moving away from Memphis, or what?
No, sir, I have no plans for leaving Memphis.
He was just almost in tears. You know, you could feel the grief and the surprise and the not quite comprehending feeling about all of it. And her grave was way up on a high hill, you know, and he often went after she passed away, as if he felt he could kind of commune with her like he did when she was alive.
When Elvis came home from the Army, he called me one night about midnight at 1 o'clock and said, "Can you come down to the house?" And basically he was talking about the loss of his mother and how much he missed her and things like this, because he lost her right before he went to Germany. But the shocking thing to me was about 1:30, 2 o'clock, as I was leaving the house, and I'd parked right in front of the front steps. He made the statement, "I wish I could be like you." And I was just shocked, you know, and I said, "You have to explain that to me." I said, "You got Cadillacs, you got this big house." And he said, "Well, you can go out that gate tonight and nobody's going to grab you and tear your clothes off and pull at your hair and everything. You can go to the grocery store, you can go to the movies, shopping centers and everything, and I can't do that."
I suppose this kind of talk raises another question. Am I in love? No. I thought I'd been in love, but I guess I wasn't. It just passed over. I guess I haven't met the girl yet, but I will, and I hope I won't be too long, because I get lonesome sometimes. I get lonesome right in the middle of a crowd, because I've got a feeling that with her, whoever she may be, I won't be lonesome no matter where I am. There was a little girl that I was seeing quite often over there that her father was in the Air Force, and actually, they only got over there about 2 months before I left. I was seeing her, and she was at the airport when I left. And there were some pictures made of her, but it was no big romance. I mean, the stories came out, the girl he left behind, and, and all that. It wasn't like that. I mean, I had to be careful when I answer a question like that.
Some room for broken-hearted lovers to cry. It's so lonely, baby. It's so lonely.
Okay, is that all? Everybody enough? Thanks, folks. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
There was always that quality of loneliness. I've never figured that out. His grandmother was that way. His father was that way. His mother was that way. And he would have times of loneliness, of just feeling lonely. And there was nothing anyone could do to make him get out of this mood. And then, all of a sudden, something would happen, he'd be out of it, and he'd be happy, and he wouldn't go through this time for maybe a period of 3 months, 6 months, or whatever.
I think success made Elvis even more lonely than he had been as a young man, and then he had always felt very isolated as well. But his answer to that was to surround himself with an entourage, so that in one sense, he never was alone. But on the other hand, the entourage which was protecting him from his loneliness was also in a way sealing him into it. He had no contact with people, with strangers, with reality.
From a lot of people in the press corps that you really are shy, humble, wonderful human being. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I don't know what makes them think that. You know, this gold belt and the...
Elvis rarely liked to be alone. He always liked having a lot of people around him. So I had to get adjusted to that. You know, I mean, yes, there were times I'd be upset, and I would say, can't we go alone, you know? But he let me know right away that he didn't do things alone, really.
First of all, I plead innocent of all charges.
Okay. I wouldn't be able to live like that, I don't think. It's a terrible way. Fame has a terrible price sometimes. Terrible, horrible. I'm so lonely, they afraid to die. So if your baby leaves you and you got a tale to tell, just take a stroll down Lonely Street to Heartbreak Hotel. Yeah, come on and be my guest. I've got the whole 13th floor. I'm so lonely that I could die. Ah, it's lonely down at Heartbreak Hotel. Nobody knows.
22 minutes.
22 minutes.
And that started.
I don't know how we did it. It's just where the lonely people has all the time. Hey, don't you love the blues? If you live on Heartbreak Hotel down at the end of Lonely Street, you sure better.
There are two critical moments in Elvis's life. The first is when he's quite young and his mother dies when he's in the army. The second shock, which was less profound but was striking a much more damage to Elvis, was when Priscilla walked out on him to go off and live with this karate instructor, Mike Stone. That clearly drove him over the edge.
Since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell.
Great. What's your secret? I take vitamin E.
Heartbreak Hotel. Oh, feeling so lonely, baby.
Dr. George Nicopolis told the Board of Medical Examiners that Elvis Presley had a habit of taking drugs from the time he woke up in the morning until he went to sleep at night.
His highs, I might say, are not highs from the amphetamines that he used. These highs were highs from getting worked up to the show.
Well, I'll just take a walk down Lonely Street, straight to Heartbreak Hotel. Well, we could be so lonely, we could die.
He was the king, after all. If you were a doctor and the king who made everybody so happy, if he called and there was something, his throat was sore or something, you would give him anything to make him feel all right. There's nothing wrong with medicine if used properly. And not that Elvis was using it improperly, purposely, and maybe without realizing it, he was needing more and more, you know. But it was not like a drug addict. And I will always say that because I know him and I do know that he did take too much.
How do you pace yourself?
Sir?
How do you pace yourself?
You mean physically, vocally, or whatever?
So you are up when you need to be up.
I just, I exercise every day. I vocalize every day. I practice if I'm working or not. You know. So I just try to stay in shape all the time. Vocally and mentally. And
Which is harder?
Well, both are tough, yeah. You got to work at them, but I don't mind it, you know. It's worth it.
My last conversation with Elvis was in May of 1977 And here was a person that was terribly lonely. He felt like he'd been betrayed by a lot of his friends that were around him and his management. He felt like that they just were totally using him. And I felt like that at that moment, in our last conversation, I felt like that he was just sort of playing out the game. You know, that he just, okay, if you want to use me, you know.
Elvis's body was brought to the hospital by ambulance. Efforts to revive him in the ambulance and efforts to revive him here at the hospital were unsuccessful, and Elvis was declared dead at 3:30. There has been a great deal of speculation here at Baptist Hospital all day long that what caused the death of Elvis Presley was drug abuse.
He committed suicide by deliberately taking a huge amount of drugs. There was debris at the scene of his death indicating that he had injected a lot more than he normally took by far.
After the autopsy was performed, they found 10 or 11 different drugs in Elvis's body, none at that level that you could consider it an overdose as such. But 4 of those drugs were not to be mixed with any other drug. So it was a chemical interaction, I think, that took place.
Elvis was a real expert on drugs. He knew every drug he was taking. He knew exactly the quantities in which he could take it and survive, or what it would take to kill himself. In fact, I would say that virtually anyone who was in the situation that Elvis Presley was in at the end of his life would have thought very seriously of committing suicide.
Elvis did not take his own life or even think about suicide. He was getting ready to go out on the tour at the time, and you have to have known Elvis to know that with his daughter Lisa Marie in that house, as much as he adored her, that there's no way in the world that Elvis would have ever even entertained the idea of suicide.
Since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. Down the end of a lonely street, Heartbreak Hotel. The bellhop's tears keep flowing, and the desk clerk is dressed in black. They've been so long on lonely street, they never will get back.
I am getting ready now. I am going up there to the candlelight vigil, and we go up there and light the candle and go by the graveside and say a little prayer in our own heart by the graveside there for Elvis. It's kind of hard to explain how you feel. It's a very sad occasion. it's, you know, you just can't believe that, you know, that he's there. But we all know, you know, that he's in heaven and he's looking down on us and loving us and seeing us do this.
When I was a child, ladies and gentlemen, I was a dreamer. And I read comic books and I was the hero of the comic book. I saw movies and I was the hero in the movie. So every dream that I ever dreamed has come true 100 times. I learned very early in life that without a song, the day would never end. Without a song, a man ain't got a friend. Without a song, the road would never bend. Without a song. So I'll keep singing a song. Good night. Thank you.
Well, since my baby left me, well, I found a new place to dwell. Well, it's down at the end of Lonely Street at Heartbreak Hotel where I'll be so lonely, baby. Well, I'm so lonely. Well, I'm so lonely, I could die. Although it's always crowded, you still can find some room for broken-hearted lovers to cry there in the gloom. Be so lonely, baby. Well, there's a lonely. Well,